get started, everybody. Thank you very much for coming this evening. We had a beautiful evening out there. Everybody was able to make it. What we're going to do is we're going to have a business meeting after our talk. Our talk tonight is on the steel mill, and I forgot. Oh, Ken Scott is going to give us first. So we're going to turn it over to Ken, and what he's going to do is he's going to tell us what he knows, he's going to explain to us what the artifacts are, and then we'll be open for questions and answers, and then we'll have a business meeting afterwards. It's all yours, Ken.
Well, I don't know much, but I've been at the steel plant for about 20 years. I'm the safety administrator for the plant right now. Throughout the time, we've had a lot of the buildings been destroyed. We've demoed a lot of buildings. I've kind of, on my own, gone in and found some different archives and stuff that I've actually held on to when the buildings that were destroyed. And that's kind of the stuff we brought up here right now. We've got an old payroll book from like 1908 from different companies. There was Andrew Steele, had it for a while. We've got some maps of that. Mostly I just brought the stuff up for you guys to look at. But I do have a trivia for you. This shell casing, when they were tearing the melt shop down, our melting facility out here in Waters, we found about 35 of these buried in different places throughout the mill. We've had some people say that they were produced on our facility, and we've had some people say that they were used for scrap. But they were brand new shells, never had primers or anything in them. We really don't know. I've got two of them. This is the better of the two. And someone never had any idea for sure, so if anybody has any history, I would love to hear about it. I've got my cards up here. Also, I've got some handouts for anybody that would like to have one, what I've got. In 1957, Acme Steel Foreman's Club meeting, Mr. Gillis basically did a little history of the steel plant, talking about when it was started in 1958, by the right iron pipe work, it's operational, it goes through the different things. And then the second one is a history from 1963 from a C.H. Sloan, Jr., who was the president and manager of the Acme Steel Company. So it's two different people at the time that produced historical information about the plant itself. So I figured you might want to, some people might want to copy these just to help get you started. The book up here is 3 different years that the plant flooded, with pictures of the flood and the devastation that occurred. The plant actually has flooded like 5 or 6 times in the lifetime of its existence down there. We have a book. This is an old payroll book, time book of payroll from 1909, the different stuff. And everybody's more than welcome when we get done to come up and look at these. There's a book from Andrew Steele about the pricing on some of the materials they bought. Revenue book. The rolling mill operations book. Like I said, you guys probably know more. Picture of the old steel plant in Waters, the old steel plant in Newport. And then the two maps down there in the end is 1950, the way the plant was designed and laid out and operating in 1950 is the older one, and the white paper one is the way the plant is set up now. There's been a lot of changes in the buildings. We've lost a lot of buildings that were non-functional to us or deteriorating, so they've demoed quite a few of the buildings and added some new. We've added a lot of new operations down there. We're in the presence of getting ready to add a whole nother operation to the facility. We did get rid of the melt shop, but we've added a slitter building, a threading building, and the coating building is probably in the next few years will be put in. There's a lot of changes and stuff going on. The computer's got a bunch of old pictures. Feel free to go through those if you want to. Other than that,
How many people are employed down there?
there's 384, I believe, right now on the books. We have all of our corporate offices and everything for the Wilder or the Newport branch, is what we call it, or the Kentucky branch is what we call it now, is at this facility. We no longer operate the Newport plant at all. We've completely decommissioned it, it's for sale and everything else. We was hoping the new highway would kind of take part of the building, but it wouldn't do it. They kind of jogged just around us. But everything has been moved to the water plant. All the office facilities went into the melt shop offices when we tore the melt shop down. Our main corporate office for the United States is in Texas right now. We are actually owned by a Russian company called TNK IPSCO. Within the last 7 years, we started out as Newport Steel, did real well. They were starting to get financially in trouble. They were bought out by a company called IPSCO from out of Canada. We ran for IPSCO for about 2 to 3 years. Then they were bought out by a company from Sweden called SSAB. And then from there, they went to, about 3 or 4 years later, they went to a joint venture between a Canadian and Swedish company and bought that group out. And then we were bought out by the Russian company, TNK, which is who we are under right now.
How long ago was that?
TNK bought out probably about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It's been a big advantage for us. We've seen a lot of financial money put into the industry, especially into this facility. We never would have had a slitter or a threader or any of that stuff. We just presently have added an accumulator to our pipe mill. An accumulator is basically, they take the coils. Let me step back here. The old method we did it, we took one of those big steel coils, they put it in a machine, and start stretching it out, and they'd run it, they'd bring the pipe up, they continuously weld it, cut it off, thread, or double the ends, coat it, and send it out. Every time a coil got done, they had to stop, put a new one on, and change it over. We just recently, within the last 3 years, bought an accumulator, which is a big device that basically, they put the coils in, it runs them up, they weld the two ends together, and then it just coils them up in a big basket, and then starts continuously going. So once the line starts, it doesn't have to stop. They can just continuously make the pipe, and once they get everything set the way it's supposed to be to make prime pipe, it should stay that way. 2 weeks ago, we just finished, this week, adding a new welder, or a different welder, and a new flying cutoff. The flying cutoff is the thing that cuts the pipe in different designs. 3 years ago, we added new bevelers to the end of the pipe to make the pipe easier for use. And it depends on what they're going to do with the pipe. If it's going to be welded, it has a certain bevel. If it's going to be threaded, it's got to have a different bevel. If it's going to be connected by some other means, it's got to have a different type thing. So there's 3 or 4 different type of bevels we make, depending on the thickness of the pipe, the grade of the pipe, the mixture, condensation throughout it, and everything.
What kind of industries does the pipe go to?
We are primarily gas and oil industry, and we lean more to oil right now. We do a lot of gas lines, but the primary thing we provide to the area is the transfer lines, big 16 and 10-inch, 9-inch pipe for transferring oil from one point to another.
Well, my next question was, how many different sizes of pipe do you make?
We have the capability of making anything from 4.5 inch up to 16. There's 2 mills down there. There's the 8-inch pipe mill, which does anything from 4.5 up to 8-inch. And then we have the 16-inch pipe mill that goes from 6 3/4 to 16-inch. The 8-inch right now is sitting dormant. We've got the U.S. TNK IPSCO companies. There's 4 or 3 other modern mills that make the smaller pipe. We're the primary producers of the main transfer lines, the bigger pipe, out of this facility. We've been averaging probably about 35 to 40 trucks going out with pipe a day. We also send out rail cars, probably 30 to 40 rail cars a month, and on an average maybe 2 to 3 barges. So it's a massive production. The biggest problem we've got right now is dealing with out of country pipe, stuff like that. So we're selling a lot, but we're not making a lot of profit out of it. We're kind of holding close to keep the market active and stuff.
What's the longest piece of pipe that you're currently making?
42 foot is our primary pipe that we make. That's the standard truck size that they can get on a truck without an issue. And most mills or most drilling outfits or whatever like the 42 foot because it's easier for them to manipulate.
Right.
We have the capability of an abbing machine down there that we can take a 42 foot pipe, cut it in half, rebevel it, and make 2 smaller pipes if needed for special orders and stuff like that. But our flying cutoff, especially this new one, can be designed to cut at whatever distance we need. We like to make the longer pipe because it goes quicker and you get it in, get it out, and get the tonnage out.
In the history, you mentioned a lot of different terms that are unfamiliar with maybe some of the folks here. What was a blast furnace, and did you ever use pig iron?
The original mill, back in the Aggie days, the pig iron was the big conjunction that was used. The blast furnace was more of a gas-fired furnace. When they got into interlake areas, they had the electric furnaces became more popular. The old style used to be where they take the melted steel and they put it down and reheat it in basically soaking pits. They did away with those with the slabs so that they could make it easier. But the electric arc furnace was the modern way that everybody's doing it. And our biggest competitor with our melt shop, the reason we had to close in, was the fact that we have an older mill. So we would have to melt the steel, make slabs, take the slabs from the melt shop to the hot strip mill. We would have to reheat the slabs and then roll it into coils. The modern mills, they make them now, they come straight out of after they melt it. Instead of making a slab, they just wind it down and take it into coils. So they cut out one whole section of our operation. And the price competitive was just beyond our control. So that's why we started buying coils. And we have a company up in Pennsylvania that still has their furnace. So they make seamless pipe. And it's just one big billet that they run a pipe through that basically makes one long tube with no seam left. And we do the seam pipe down here.
Now, I know that you have a shaper. What did you call that makes it?
It's just a rolls. Basically, as the steel comes through, it's not heated or anything. It's just forced up and around. And when it comes back up to a touch, we have basically a welder that just welds that long seam. And then they take the scarf off the top and the inside of it. It runs down as a long piece of pipe through the straighteners and make sure it's all level and everything. And then they got a flying cutoff that clamps it and just follows along with it as it's going down the line, cuts it, and then kicks it out and goes back and catches the next one. And then from there it goes down into inspection. They do the beveling. We do pressure tests where they roll it into a big chamber, plug both ends, push water and air into it to, I think it's 4,800 pounds right now as a test pressure. And if it doesn't blow the seam, we're good. And then from there it rolls out, goes through what we call our NDT, non-destructive testing. It's basically like a little x-ray. They put the weld up top and they run this little x-ray along and it x-rays the weld to find if there's any impurities or any bad spots in the weld.
On my way to work, I used to pass these trucks with coils on them all the time. Where are they coming from?
We've been buying a lot of coils from down in Gent. Down in that area, we've got some up in Pennsylvania we buy, we've got some up in Ohio. Every once in a while we do get barges in with coils, and a lot of times it's the Russian coils from one of our sister companies that comes in. But most of our coils are in this general area.
I noticed most of the time there's only one coil. How much do they weigh?
A single coil, well, with having the caster now, or the accumulator now, we can buy the bigger coils. It would weigh probably 68,000 pounds.
I noticed there's only one on a truck. I thought, man, that must be a heavy coil.
Well, because we used to have to send all of our coils up somewhere else, and they would take these master coils, which are huge, and then they would cut them to the size we needed. If we were making 10-inch pipe, so it would bend into the 10-inch pipe. And then they would take the lower section, cut it into a 6-inch pipe or whatever they needed to make the most out of the wall, out of that coil. We now have a slitter down here in our facility where we can actually bring those huge coils in, slit them here, take them straight over the job. So efficient-wise, we've really upgraded a lot from what we've had in the past.
I
what are the sources for the other materials you use? Where you get all your steel from?
Well, we don't melt anything anymore, so majority of the steels all come into coils, which is anything we get coming in right now. We basically, I consider it a big recycling plant, because anything we don't use, if we have a pipe that comes out bad, or when they're running a line through the pipe, they have to cut little, what we call postage stamps out of the weld section, so that the lab can analyze the weld and make sure it's good. That section of pipe is actually sold back to somebody as scrap. Then they sell it to somebody who's got a furnace, and it recycles back, and we get it back the other way. So everything that we do, every trim work, all the metal we use, everything is basically recycled back into the system to where it's reused again. So it's not like it's just disposed of or wasted.
Does that weaken the steel when it's melted and reused, melted and reused?
Not really, because like I said, we don't really, you melt the steel itself.
Yeah.
And then when you make, it's like making a new steel product. It's just steel there.
Yeah.
And then when we put it through the line, we don't reheat it. We just actually have rollers that eventually just bring it around to the point. And it heats itself up to a point. The pipe itself, we've never had an issue with. The only problem we ever have issues with, or we have to be really concerned about, is the weld, the butt weld, where they put the two together to make sure that's acceptable.
Can you tell us a little bit about your job as
My job?
security?
Okay. I'm safety administrator. I oversee the security department, make sure that any issues come up with that. I oversee a lot of the medical. I take care of all medical injuries. I take care of all specialty rescues, investigations. I do high angle, and I do fall protection training, hearing conservation. I kind of have the phrase in my office, it's a septic tank. And anything nobody else wants to do, they throw in my office. Because I mean, I do a lot of different jobs. I've been there for a long time, and I've gotten to know a lot of the stuff going on, gotten to know a lot of the people who have moved up in the corporation. You know, if you're interested in buying the Newport property, as chances are, I'm going to be the one going down to meet you to get you into the facility. But my job is whatever needs to be done. I'm on a 24-hour call out. It's not unusual for me to get calls 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning with an issue. Anytime somebody gets hurt, myself or the safety manager, who strictly deals with safety itself, one of us will go to the hospital with the employee. They have to go to the hospital. You know, we really do care a lot about our employees. We try to let them know that we care about them. We want to make sure they're safe. We want to do everything we can to make them safe. And as long as I don't get injury calls, I'm happy. We've actually gotten our rate down. I think we've had one OSHA recordable accident this year, and it was a very minor, not really something that we could avoid. It was like a rotor cuff injury. But we've done a lot to upgrade safety in the facility.
Because I remember as a child in school in the area, several of the kids in the school lost their dad at the steel plant.
I was talking to a few of them a little bit ago. One of the buildings, they call it the old sand pit building in the back. They were tearing it down. And I never did get to the papers that were in there. I wish I could have. But they had little statements like production stopped for 20 minutes due to amputated hand.
Oh.
You know, little different things like that. To where that was part of the culture then. Today's culture is safety. And TMK IPSCO is very, very safety-oriented company. They will go out of their way and spend tons of money to make sure everybody's safe. That's our big goal.
Well,
Yes,
Did
ma'am.
I hear you say they don't do vertical pours anymore?
We don't have a melt shop anymore.
Okay.
Our melt shop is gone. Like I said, it wasn't economically for us to try and produce something that we couldn't. It was costing us 3 times what we're buying the coils for to make them.
when I was growing up and you drive past and this big orange cloud would be coming out over everything, and then all of a sudden they had what looked like scrubbers on top of the building and you didn't see the cloud anymore. So that's where they're melting stuff?
Right. The EPA came in. We used to have 3 furnaces that would be our melting furnaces. And the whole process was they would take a preheated furnace, they did everything in it. They put a load of what we call a bucket of scrap at the time. And then they would take like 2 small buckets of limestone and throw in it. They put these 3 probes down to the top of it, arc across the probes, and the arcing across the probes would heat up the metal enough that would make it melt. Well, after they got the steel melted, they would open the lid up and put another load of scrap on top of it. The limestone was put in there to help hold the heat while they were putting that extra load in there. After they melted the second one by the same process, they would tilt the furnace back to make all the limestone go to one side, and then they would dump it into another kettle, and then take it down to the caster, which is what would pour it into the slabs. The limestone then would be dumped into the area, and surprisingly enough, tons and tons of the gravel throughout this area here is basically the limestone and stuff that was used down there. You ever drive down someone's driveway and it's kind of dusty looking gravel and it blows up smoke, chances are it's the limestone that came out of it.
Is that what you're doing to gents these days?
Please, yes. Yes.
Are you currently a union plant?
Yes. Management's non-union, and then we have union employees.
Are you running 3 shifts?
Well, like I said, we've been down 2 weeks because of the production, but at times we do run 3 shifts. We run 6 days. I think next week they're starting back, and they've got 3 shifts, 7 days.
Wow.
So they'll come back, they'll probably work that for a week or 2 weeks, and they'll go to 6 days. It kind of depends on the orders. I mean, sometimes we get some good orders, and it can go on for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the society or economy changes, orders back down, we have to back down accordingly.
Here lately, you have the noise from the plant.
And we are concerned with the community's needs. We've set up new procedures. 10 o'clock at night, every building roll-up door is put down. So there's no chance of, well, we're trying to reduce the secondary noise. We've moved scrap boxes between buildings to try and deaden the sound by them putting the scrap into a box or something.
I used to raise hell with Mike Dyson.
Please keep doing it. Keep raising hell with it. He needs it. We've had issues. I know that some people say that there's been dust, blowing up from the area. We've still got a lot of the old limestone there. We're trying to upgrade it. We are actually paying, I think it was like $30,000 this year. We're going to be putting out to put a coating on top of this to try and knock the dust down. So, we try to work with the community the best we can. But, some people, like I tell them, this place has been here forever. You moved in 2 years ago. Understand it's going to, we're trying to make it better, but we can't do it overnight. Without the furnaces there, that's a big change. I mean, when they used to hit those furnaces, there was a little moisture in it. It would make a very rattling, building type noise. But it's changed a lot.
Dust down out of the top.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It blew the birds off the trees next to it. So, and then by adding the bag house, when you've seen the dust originally, we put the system in there. That was just a big vacuum that would suck up all the exhaust from the furnaces. It would go over, run through these filtered bags. After a while, they would shake the bags. It would drop down into a rail car, and they would take it out and use it for fertilizer or ground cover or whatever. So like I said, it's a big recycling plant, and it's always been a recycling plant. Everything gets used over as much as we can.
Now, about what year did the plant open originally? Well, I mean, we're talking about, first off, you talked about Newport, you talked about Wilder. Were there always one company, or there were 2 companies, or 3, or how many companies were there?
Okay. Andrew started down in Newport. They were the original conglomeration. They did a lot of plate steel and flat metal. They seen the market was increasing. They thought they could make the money by melting and making their own steel instead of just taking someone else's product and doing it. They didn't have the footprint down in Newport to actually put in another facility. At that time is when they came out to Wilder's and bought up the property that was used for the racetrack, which was deteriorating and getting run down, and people didn't have the finances to stop the racetrack. So the racetrack went under. They bought the building, or the land, and that's where the melt shop and then the original 8-inch pipe mill came from, and the pickling line and stuff like that. They were always under the same company. There was never a separation between the two. So.
How many names did it go under all the years? I remember Andrews, I remember the Wilder Steel Plant, Newport Rolling Mill, all these different names that are used here.
Yeah, it was always, Newport was, steel plant, Wilder Works, but it was still all under Newport Steel. Newport Steel actually started when Interlake closed and went out of business. 4 guys came in that used to work for Interlake, put money together, and I think they came up with like 70 or 80% of the money to purchase the rights to the buildings and stuff like that. And then they started a board conglomeration of, I think, 7 other people who put money in to come up with the money they needed. That was the initial start of all of the Newport Steel. Their office was actually in Newport, right there at the 9th and Lowell. They had a separate corporate building. After they got Newport started up and running, then they bought Erlanger Electric. They actually had 5 companies at one time that was all under Newport Steel ownership, but had their own individual names. And then from that point is when IPSCO came in and bought them out, and so on and so on and so on.
How long was it Interlake?
I can't say officially. I would be lying to you. I really don't know.
It was actually in the early 60s,
Yeah.
then it went the other way.
Okay.
About the middle, towards the middle of the 60s.
Yeah, I thought it was towards maybe the end of the 60s more.
Well, but it was actually, the first wife went to work there, was actually,
Okay.
she worked in the melt shop out there.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah, because the old facility down in Newport, they had a melting pot, but not a melting facility. It was a totally different operation. They could do small melts that would maybe make, pour into small flat steels. When they got into the stuff down here in Wilders with the 3 furnaces, major production of melted steel and stuff like that.
Now, was River Metals originally a supplier for steel that went into the melting?
When I first started here 20-something years ago, River Metals was one of the suppliers. We had our own scrap yard. We had probably 9 different scrap yards that would supply to us. They did part of it, but we weren't first or sole provider for us.
What's steel made of?
Steel.
Where does it come from?
It's an iron ore mixture. They may add magnesium to it, they may add aluminum to it. It depends on what the pipe is going to be used for. There's different qualities, different grades. I'm sure some of you heard of the new fracking method, where they basically go down, they explode, and then they suck all the stuff. Well, that type of steel has got to be a little bit more dense, a little bit harder, a little thicker because of the compression of what's being done. TNK IPSCO, well, IPSCO itself, I think, was the original plant, actually bought out a company down in Texas, Odessa, Texas, with a little fishing tool and die company who invented this special coupling to couple these 2 pieces of pipe, and they still have the patent on it. And that was a big changeover for the quality of the lines and stuff that they use, especially for the fracking and some of the drilling now. So we still have a hand in the production. We have our own research and development building in Texas. So they're always trying to change and make it better, make it more usable, and increase it.
How many mills do they own in the United States?
I think TNK IPSCO owns, I believe it's 8 facilities in the U.S. There's 2 in Canada, and I think there's like 9 in Russia. And I think there's another one somewhere else, I'm not sure where it is. But the gentleman who is the owner of all of TNK IPSCO is got very deep pockets. We like him. But, any other questions, or like I said, there's not much
Is he
I
a
can.
Russian? The guy you're talking about, he's a Russian?
Yeah, they told me, you ever watch that, the Yachts of the Rich and Famous? His little boat was on there. It's the one with the 2 helicopter pads. I guess one's not enough. You just have to have a spare. I don't know.
All right, well, thank you very much. Be sure and come up and look at the books before you leave.
Thank you. I have my business card here. feel free to take one if you've got any questions, any history or anything you want to throw towards us that we can put together.
We
We're
very
trying
much
to,
appreciate the history that goes in our file.
we're trying to put a little room together with some of this miscellaneous stuff.
Is there an archivist? Someone contacted us a while back, a lady,
Jennifer, who
probably.
was looking for stuff.
She wanted people to interview and stuff, and I gave her a couple names.
Jennifer is our environmental rep,
Oh,
and she takes environmentally very heavy. So the last couple of years when she does her environmental training, because every month we have a training session down there for our employees. They have to go through training every month on a different topic. And the last year, a couple of years, she's been trying to produce little videos with some of the older pictures,
okay.
some of the history a little bit, trying to throw a little bit of excitement into a boring subject. But, so she's been doing pretty well with that, and that's
Okay.
probably who you're talking.
Yeah,
But we really do not have a archive person.
that's you.
It's the septic tank back in my office.
I have a question. What did they make during World War II?
Anything special?
I'm not certain. Like I said, I don't know if that was what they did, but I know that they had a lot of females were coming into work at that time. I know the melt shop was in a big production point during World War II. They had a lot of stuff coming out. Somewhat, you know, again, I'm just going by hearsay, but someone says a lot of the steel, they were making thinner plate steel at the time, and they were sending it out towards for tanks or trucks or airplanes or whatever they could use it for, as well as maybe producing these. And
That seems like a logical thing. If you're making rolling pipe, that seems like that's a logical thing.
yeah, you know, but like I said, no one could ever really pinpoint it. And I've talked to quite a few of the people that's been out there for a while, and nobody really knows. But we can tell that it's never been primered, it's never been anything like that. And when we actually tore the melt shop completely down and we're going through the grading area, cleaning everything out, getting everything cleaned up, that's when I found these. So,
I guess you're glad there was nothing in it.
yeah, so,
That would be a major safety problem.
yeah, we used to have the furnaces down there, and they would always bring guns and drugs and stuff like that, the FBI and all the narcotic agents, they'd bring them down there and we'd destroy it for them, which we had to make sure they were empty at the time. So, but I'll be around here. Like I said, I've got a little bit of history. I'm very interested, and if I can help you out with anything, or if you guys ever got any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to have a brief regular meeting. We're first going to thank the City of Wilder for allowing us to use this building tonight, despite the fact that I forgot to get the key for it. I had to get the policeman to let me back in. It occurred to me as I was putting my shoes on to come better that I don't have a key. So luckily he was upstairs and let us in again, so good for that. Welcome everybody. Anybody here is a visitor for the first time tonight? I know we have a visitor from West Virginia this evening. So I'm going to thank everybody for coming.
I'm a member,
A member, but you're still a visitor.
but I brought my mother.
Okay, very good, thank you. I'll do the treasurer's report first, since Mike's not here. Our balance on hand is $10,544. Our membership at the moment is 27 life, 1 business, 232 regular, for a total of 226, which is, for this time of year, is a very good number for us, because we have been dropping for a while. Every organization is, so I think 226 or 260 is a very good number for us. So I appreciate that. Jim Mueller's not here tonight, so Richard McCormick's going to do the reading minutes from last meeting.
On July 10th, we met at Newport High School. Ken opened the meeting, and we proceeded with the regular business meeting. We went through the normal reports. Old and new business included an upcoming Backroads Farm Tour on July 19th, and then the A.J. Jolly Festival on August 16th. We then, at the end of the business meeting, we discussed future meetings and then turned over the meeting to T. Turner and Roger Von Stroh, who were the guest speakers. Mr. Turner discussed the upcoming renovation of Newport High School that begins in October at a cost of approximately $14 million. Mr. Von Stroh, who had been formerly a history teacher at Newport High School, is now kind of the keyboard of the archives, trying to organize the history. And he discussed some of that project and also reported on the history of the Newport High School and noted that it may be the oldest high school west of the Allegheny Mountains. And we then concluded the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Richard, you might as well stand back up for anything on gifts and donations.
Mr. William Burr gave us a couple actually neat items, a book, United States Ship Hornet, First War Cruise 1943 to 1945. Got some neat pictures. It's got a lot of information and a list of all the crew members on it. Well, we also gave us a painting called the Coronation Club, which is a good research opportunity. Apparently the local artist painted this, and it's got a couple dozen names listed on it that we think may be local soldiers from World War II. And if anybody's heard of a Coronation Club from a local neighborhood from the World War II era, let us know. But there's, we're going to look into it and see what we can find out about it. Some good opportunity. It's a really neat item. So there should be an article about it in the upcoming newsletter as well.
Okay, thank you. Mike usually does the family tree names. As of right now, we have 291,474 names in our database, which is pretty impressive. Pam's not here, but Pam said that the veterans records are up to 13,000 plus names in our veterans records. Marvin, anything on cemeteries?
Well, I was contacted by the Campbell County Road Department because I've appeared before the fiscal court a couple of times in reference to cemeteries. Somehow they thought I was the person to ask about the Robert Shaw Cemetery. So the first thing when the guy and I met, and they were going to try to widen Lick Hill or Lick Branch Road so that it's not so much a 90-degree turn, and they were wondering if they could get into the cemetery. So the first thing he says, now, the Historical Society owns a cemetery, right? I said, no, we don't own any cemeteries. We don't want to own any. We don't want to find bodies. We're just basically trying to document them. So they're having trouble determining who owns that property. Nobody seems to want to own it. Jim here mowed it for a ton of years, and I think one of the owners basically asked him to not be in there anymore. We don't think that person was the owner either. He just didn't want anybody in there. So at this point, they're trying to make that road wider, but until they find who owns it, they're not going to do anything because they can't have the permission. It is deeded off on the deed. It says with the exclusion of the quarter-acre cemetery, such and such. But they can't find now who owns it. But I'm thinking the county's probably got a lawyer that work forever and ever. So there's also a little bit of happening at the behind the Southern States. They've got that all cleared off very nicely now. It used to have a bunch of trees, and that St. Paul's Church is in the process. They're going to put the stones back up and maybe a memorial. We think there's probably 20 graves there. We know of about 6 or 7 names. And they're going through their archives trying to find out who else is buried there. Yes?
Your little background information, why that was St. Paul's Church and Cemetery.
It started out as the property of the German Reformed Evangelical Lutheran, I think, might have been thrown in there. And over the course of time, that little church and the ground next to it became St. Paul's United Church of Christ. They've gone from Reformed to a different, it's still Christian religion, but as churches progressed. So at that point, nobody did anything with this cemetery for the longest time. And then the people at St. Paul's, because they were doing a history at some point, found out that some of the people buried there had been members of the original church, and some of them carried through to the St. Paul's. So they did their cemetery and deed research and found out they still owned it, and that's why they basically said, well, if we own it, we're going to take care of it now, which I'm tickled to death. I wish a few other owners of cemeteries would do that. But they tore down an old building that was a barn or something like that. At one time, the tombstones had been used for the sidewalk for that house that's back there. The house is actually not part of the property. Well, about 5 foot of the house is on the property. So the house has been vacant for probably 10 years. I don't know what's going to happen to that. I think that's part of the Zen estate. The cemetery's decided, the board from St. Paul's has decided, well, the building is not going to hurt what we're going to do. We'll just leave it there and let those folks worry about that. So they intend to put the stones back up, or at least make a monument maybe. And the Northern Kentucky students in the physical science and archaeology did ground search with probes and ground piercing radar, and we determined where a few of the graves are. They make a 90-degree where the opening is, and that's what they find underground. They don't find boxes or anything like that. It's just basically the change in the terra firma. So that was a very interesting process, and at some point, I'll get get a bunch of pictures put together of all those cables and things like that, and it'll at least be up at the Historical Society. Yes?
Maybe it's something for the board meeting, but you said how nice it is that they decided to preserve and take care of it. Is there any way we can give them some kind of just acknowledgement?
I think
or
we
thank
need to
you?
acknowledge the 2 or 3 cemeteries in the county that are being well kept. There's one on Persimmon Grove. The Ball Cemetery in the Carthage area is very well preserved. There's one down on Lick Branch, which is part of a holiness, it was a holiness chapel or something like that. The cemetery isn't technically owned by those folks, but it's on their property. It was there before they became there. So there's 5 or 6 that maybe we need to do that. I appreciate you bringing that up, Richard.
One on Johns Hill Road, they did a pretty good, nice job with the old St. John the Baptist Catholic Church Cemetery.
Right.
Cleaned it up. And
The guy put an iron fence around it because he's in that business. But here lately, that is starting to grow up again too. It's just one of those things. You can't keep doing things and, you're taking money out of your pocket and whatever. But it does look pretty good. So you're right. We'll have to do that. And I'll kind of get a list together so that we can do this.
do that for a whole meeting.
Yes. Now, I'm going to throw a little bit of curve at us, that shell casing there. About 7 years ago, we were asked if we knew anything about the rock foundations on Indian Trace. Is that correct, Indian Trace? Place? Tippenhauer Road. So a lot of us went down looking at it, and we were actually thinking the wrong war. We were thinking Civil War, but it turned out these rock foundations and rock plateaus didn't have any foundation under them. Basically, they were rocks that were stacked. So we knew it was not a building or anything like that. So it was a little research and talking to the people at the fort. World War I, the Army bargained with the neighborhood farmers, and they said, we've got all these volunteers that would love to come and take the rocks out of your hay fields and stuff like that. And what they did, they established mortar embankments or something like that. Because of the slope of the ground, if you have a mortar, you normally need something reasonably level. They've got a little bit of adjustment on each leg, but it has to be reasonably level. So what they did, they took all of these rocks that was, field stones and whatever, and they built 5 or 6, and some of them are like maybe 5 times the size of this table, and some of them are relatively small. But they start out at the lower end of it, and when they get to whatever is the top part of the ground, where it meets the ground, then they just stop laying rocks there. But what they were doing, they were firing shells, so they would make sure the farmers didn't have any cows or anybody in there on these days. And I asked the people there at the fort, I said, so didn't that do a lot of damage to the ground that were out there? And they said, oh, we didn't use real steel, we used clay shells. The guys still got the training. They launched this clay shell that might be this big around, this long, and when it hit, it just disintegrated. So anyhow, that's a little, I saw that casing there, and that might be from that time frame.
I remember when we went up there, we had all these wild ideas what it was going to be, and nothing was like that at all.
Yeah.
One of the kind of stories that grew onto itself.
See, the thing of it is, when you build a fort and then they build a big town around it, you can't shoot your cannons. So they had to come out in the country, and that's why Rifle Range Road got its name and a few things like that. So the names of the tombstones are the board of whatever they were for the congregation. But that congregation has split and done things, and now, it's probably still deeded to that congregation. That congregation no longer exists, so it's vacant property.
It's amazing how many small cemeteries there are out there.
Corpus Christi was moved 3 times. One time it was right down here by Frederick's Landing, but the 3rd time it wound up where St. John the Baptist Church is, but it's called St. Joseph Cemetery. And that's the continuation of Corpus Christi.
Yeah, there's a lot of cemeteries around the county, and I can't tell you over the last 24 years how many battles I've had There's one in Alexandria where the congregation pulled the tombstones up, threw them over the hill and paved over it. It's now part of the parking lot for the church.
Oh, that's.
There's another one off US 27. They built this gas station over top of it. It goes on all the time. I mean, there was one out here on Persimmon Grove Pike outside Alexandria that I knew existed, and when the construction men started digging, putting in pipeline for the subdivision putting in, they dug up bones. He refused to do it. The contractor just simply got somebody who would do it. Just went right on, disappeared. I mean, it goes on every day. Any cemetery that's not big like Evergreen is, if it's in a way of something, people pick the tombstones up, throw them out of the way, and then it's gone. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It goes on every single day, someplace. We've been offered to several, but we don't know yet. All right, Jan, Lester, anything on newsletter?
Yeah, the September issue of the newsletter should be out right at the beginning of September. Hopefully you all will get it within the first couple days of September. I didn't take a big long vacation this year, but we've got several little mini ones going on, and they're all kind of coming up here, so I'm juggling things. But you'll get the newsletter hopefully by the beginning of September. In the newsletter is an article about some of our technology updates recently. If you have ever given us your email, hopefully you got a notice about tonight's meeting a couple days ago. I've learned how a couple of members had suggested, why don't we inform people via email? I learned how in the Gmail to make a list, a group, so I can type one email and send it to everybody at the same time. And each program you use, it's a little different. So I'm used to doing it on my personal email, but I had never done it in Gmail, and it's kind of complicated, but I got it figured out. If you want to give me your email, if you didn't get the notice, there's in the newsletter, send me an email with your email, and I will add you to the notification list. We might use it for other things, maybe if there's a special meeting or a special event or a cancellation of a meeting. It's weather related. So read that article, and the information is in there about how to contact me and let me know. And then you can be taken off of the phone list if you want to have your name dropped from the phone list. Some people have already said that to some of Ruth's calling volunteers, have said, well, I got an email, I don't need a call. Well, that's the idea, but it's not going to take effect for a couple months until Ruth and I can get it all coordinated. So just let us know your preference, and we'll do that for you. Also, we are always in need of more technology sponsors. If you know of a business in the area, when I started this, I tried to think of businesses who had ties to this county. People who were kind of family-owned businesses. I asked them first, and several have become our technology sponsors. They pay $50 a year. They get to be our technology sponsor of the month for 1 month out of the year for their donation. They get a little ad in our newsletter. It's not big, but then again, $50 a year isn't a lot to ask of a business, you know. So we can use more. If anybody knows anybody, please ask them or have them call us or tell one of our board members, and we will contact them. That's all I have.
Thank you. We had the Backroads Farm Tour, went pretty well. My particular farm or museum was on the Backroads. I have a 225, which was lower than usual, but it was a day that looked like it could have rained any moment, but never did rain. Actually, the weather was very nice all day, but for some reason people didn't come out. Now, speaking of going out to events, this Saturday is the A.J. Jolly Park celebration. It's called Festival in the Lake. They have a lot of stuff going on. We are going to be there. Marvin and I are meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning at the office to gather stuff up. If anybody can help us out that day to be a volunteer for a couple hours, we'd appreciate it. He and I are going to stay till noon. Martha and who else is coming? Janet Ginter are going to come from 12 to 2. Daryl's coming from 2 to 4. If somebody else can help Daryl, that would be great. And then we need somebody at the end of the day to help Shirlene. All we're going to do is box it up and we're gonna try to get it back up to the office, just shove it in the front door, and I will take care of getting it to the second floor. You don't have to put it up there at all. So if somebody could help us out at any time that day, we'd really appreciate the help. Just see me before you leave tonight, and I'll put your name down. So, I mean, we only need about a couple people there, just to keep an eye on stuff so stuff doesn't walk. You know, in every event, people do take pictures. And I guess they think that's, you know, if it's there, it's free, and we lose pictures at every event. But that's just the way things are. So we need to have people there to kind of keep an eye on our books for us. So most of our pictures are one of a kind.
And it is under a tent.
Yeah, it's under a tent. We
Tent
have,
for us, so you'll be out in the sun.
yeah,
So.
we have 6 8-foot tables and several chairs under a tent. We're booth number 4 and 5 this year. Okay, speaking of events like that, the Senior Citizens Picnic's coming up on September the 17th. We will be there from at 11 a.m. set up. We'll also have it's like a vendor's booth where you have the shelf in the front and the table. So anybody wants to help Mike that day, help work that event, that's a good event to go to. So that would be another thing you can help us out with. In the process this month, we found out that our sign out front of the courthouse, which we've had up for years, the Conservation District is next door. They put a sign up, and now for whatever reason, the City of Alexandria has a problem with that. So they want us to get rid of our sign, and the other sign, and combine them into one sign, which means both of us are going to have much smaller signs, less visible from the road. So I talked to several people. The county is going to pay for this. We're still working on what it's going to say and how it's going to be said on the sign itself. But apparently the City of Alexandria has changed their mind, and they don't want 2 signs out there now on one piece of property, so they're going to take ours down. So why, I have no idea, but that's what's happening. Okay, Alexandria Fair Parade's coming up Wednesday, August 27th. And anybody would like to join Marvin and a crew of people walking, holding signs, or whatever, please see Marvin before you leave. We can always use some volunteers for that. And finally, the meetings. September, we're going to meet at the Newport Courthouse. We've had a bad track record when we go to Newport. Invariably, we get down there and somebody's got the door locked and we don't get in. So I'm going to call about 4 times ahead of time to make sure we get in this time. But we're going to visit the old and the new courthouse. The old building was renovated, the new courthouse was put behind it. They're connected, so the promises we're going to see both. In October, we're going to see St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Fort Thomas. They're going to have a special music presentation for us. On the 19th of October, which is not a meeting night, but it's Camp Springs Herb Store, which is a good event. We're going to be there. November the 13th, we're going to be right back in here, and Ben Bernstein's going to come and talk about B&B riverboats. And December 11th, we're being back here again, and that's our Christmas holiday social, and the Hills of Kentucky Dulcimers will play for our Christmas social that night. So, anybody else have anything they want to bring up tonight? All right, I want to thank everybody. I'm going to especially thank Ken for coming tonight and giving this presentation. Please come up and look at this. He brought all this here tonight, so please come up and look at it.
This is basically some old pictures.